we need examples, not just ideas, not just conversations, not just thoughts. We need examples of what it looks like when a community, an intergenerational, diverse community says, you know what, we're going to come together and we're going to see what it means to foster vitality in ourselves, with each other, and in this place over time. And why not call it a school?
Springhouse Community School has been called the most dynamic and promising experiment in education and community building. It's a K-12 bilingual school with adult programs, community networks, and even a print shop that's a glorious story in itself. It also works with a participatory budgeting and pricing model and incorporates things like restorative justice and land regeneration practices. The school describes itself as an intergenerational, vitality-centred learning community in Southwest Virginia, where we are fundamentally transforming the purpose and practice of education. Its vision, a world where all life thrives. Sounds obvious when you say it. What else would the point of education be? It all stems from Meg Wheatley's premise that life pushes back against a story that excludes it. Jenny Finn is the school's somewhat unwitting founder and executive director, having never imagined she'd be living here or doing this. It's a wonder she's even with us at all, but her death-defying tale has ultimately shaped her journey, and as we talk about it, some uncanny parallels in our lives feed a consistently amazing and often hilarious chat. In her car, yep, we tried in her office as it was too windy outside, but school life was in full volume as an evening event commenced, which, by the way, featured student and other presentations on economics and the cosmos. Now that sounds like an education. G'day, Anthony James here for The Regeneration, your independent listener-supported podcast, exploring how people are regenerating the systems and stories we live by, with thanks to new subscribers on Substack, Bronwyn Morgan and Nelson Cheng, the first founding member. Thanks, brother. And to the generous souls clocking up over 3 years of support on Patreon, Chris Hewing, Stuart McAlpine and Angie Solito. Thanks also, Angie, for your support over here on this US tour. If you've been thinking about joining this great community of supporting listeners and readers, I'd love you to. For as little as $1 a week, with benefits if you like, you can help keep the show on the road. Subscribe free or paid on Patreon or Substack. Just follow the links in the show notes with my endless gratitude. Okay, let's head to Springhouse, starting in Jenny's office and ending with her singing for us. Oh, and if your ears are sensitive to the sound of Jenny's swooshing jacket, that gets the boot. About 15 minutes in. Jenny, it's terrific to be with you. Thanks for having us at the school.
I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
We could start in any number of places, but I figure let's locate ourselves first. So we're in your office at the school, but let's bring the listeners in to where that is exactly.
So we're sitting in Floyd County, Virginia, and Floyd is a mountainous place. Low, slow, rolling hills that have a wisdom to them. I'm someone who I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and then I lived in Colorado with my family for over 20 years, my husband and my kids, and then we moved to these mountains. So I have this relationship with the Rocky Mountains and with the Blue Ridge Mountains here. And these mountains are older, and the land is wise here. Lots of water and lots of wisdom in those mountains. So I do believe that I had no intention of founding a school. So I'm really clear that this is the land and this is the place where a school like this could be born and thrive.
Brilliant. So how did it come to be here, and how did you come to be here?
That is a big story.
Let's go.
Let's go. So, okay, where do I want to start that story, AJ? I think I'll start it where it's most important to start, and that is an experience I had now almost 35 years ago when I was 20. So when I was 20, I was a young adult who was very, very lost in addiction to alcohol, to relationships. I came by it honestly. I have an Irish Catholic lineage where there's many, many alcoholics. So alcoholism is my lineage.
I know it too well.
Right? So it's not surprising that that's what happened for me. And as you can even see looking around my office, which I didn't see this before, there's lots of wings. There's lots of birds. There's lots of things related to soaring and flying. And there's a deep part of me, I think, that had real trouble, and sometimes even still does, being on the planet the way it is now. And so finding ways to escape it is what I did. And it started young with sugar and things like that, that are now socialized and normalized. But there's an awareness I have now where I saw and can still see the ways that I want to escape. So this is important because while I was in the escape process, really dangerous, something found me. And that mystery that found me has never left me. So when I was 20, I was very, very drunk at a party, and I was about to do something not so good to the guy that I was dating. And I had a really hateful thought come through that basically wanted to kill him. And right after that thought, something in me happened, almost like shook me. And I heard from within very clearly, put your drinks down, you will never drink again. And I have never had a drink since that day. And I can tell you, everyone around me, including myself, was shocked that shift happened so quickly. The wake-up call happened quickly. And then I learned really quickly that if I was going to live in accordance with what woke me up, I was going to have to create a different life. One that didn't have me going to the bar every night. One that didn't have me following my boyfriend around. New things had to happen. I had to find new communities. I had to find mentorship from elders, from people who were examples of the way I wanted to live my life. So at that time, it was always about, well, it's always been about how do we live in a way that is more aligned with life in a culture that is not, that is really doing its best to kind of be out of alignment, unconsciously mostly, but even consciously.
We'll control it.
Conquer
it even.
Exactly. Escape it, not be in the body, not be in the earth of things, addiction. So I woke up really young, and then very soon after that, I was diagnosed with a very serious life-threatening cancer at 25. That would have killed me 10 years earlier. They just started to experiment. It was a lymphoma. And I obviously survived, and I had another experience when I was coming out of surgery with that voice again that basically was telling me from within that all is well. It just kept saying all is well. And it was from after that, very shortly after that, the wake-up call for me turned into a calling of service. So it was a wake-up call to me, and I thought, oh my God, there is something within us that shows itself in a million different ways. For me, it was a voice that I still hear, that I heard, and that's my relationship with it, and how I connect with the mystery of life has been a number of ways. Dance is a primary way for me, but quiet, meditation, walking in the woods. There's a million ways that I connect with my body and with what's sacred, and grow my self-awareness so I can be more awake on the planet. So having that wake-up call and then realizing that, oh my God, there is something deeper at play here, and being introduced by my mentors to old mystics from all over the world, people, I wasn't alone. I realized that I wasn't the only person waking up to something that she couldn't explain. And I thought, well, that means that that's possible for anyone in their own way. And so what happened was, to keep the story short and get it to Floyd County, Virginia, is...
It doesn't have to be short.
Okay. When I was in Colorado, I ended up doing a lot of things just to strengthen. I was just following my call. So I was doing things like I worked, I got my master's and license in social work, which was in a traditional program that frankly didn't do a thing for me, but other than give me a little bit of a pathway. And from there, I ended up doing a residency as a chaplain in a spiritual care department in the emergency department. And so I was faced with death a lot. I worked in hospice. And there were a number of things that I did.
Can we hold that one? Because as you were talking, I was curious about why you trusted that voice in a state and a habit, a pattern of disregard. Why that voice felt to you like it had substance and needed to be followed, such that you thread through to that moment, and you're in a chaplaincy role.
I know, it's crazy. I'm gonna cough my brains out.
Do it.
God, it's something.
Yeah, it's totally triggered you. Hey, it's like
it really triggered me.
Spice in the air or something. Yeah, we got options. We could.
Should we go outside? It's really.
Would you like
really
to?
Bad for me.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay. Let's see. How will I segue this to the fact we're in a car in the car park?
Let me tell you, we won't forget this.
No, that's right.
We're not going to forget this process.
Maybe
this will be a story we tell later because something really funny happens from this whole thing.
Live
Honestly.
podcasting.
Exactly.
So we have adjourned to the car in the car park because cooking up a storm, as the staff is doing currently, really put some sort of spice in the air that derailed us in our former location. So we've shifted, but not in the big picture sense. So let's pick it up where we were, which is, I was already thinking, how did you know to trust that voice? And why did you give your life to that voice, in a sense? And then that's only sort of affirmed through your journey to the point where you're now assuming that level of responsibility and almost a sacred responsibility. How did that happen?
Amazing. I have to say that I think that's a miracle. I think it's a miracle. I can be very stubborn, very strong-willed. So the fact that I bent toward that voice while I was 20 years old at Michigan State University, living in the only residential house in the middle of town that was surrounded by pretty much every bar in East Lansing, Michigan. The fact that I stayed with it is an utter miracle. But I think it also speaks to the power of that wake up, right? Because it was like, it must have really shook me to the core. But many, and I've known many addicts continue their addiction and even die from their addiction while they are losing their family, maybe going to prison. So the fact that I was 20, mostly, the norm around me because of, it was partying. People were partying. It was college in the United States of America. It was a Big Ten school. And that's kind of was normal around what I was doing.
Yet you stepped outside of it. There's actually one of the lines that I noticed on the website, I think it was, I'm assuming it was, I noted it down and then I've just got it here in front of me right now, which is from Martin Luther King Jr., which is very topical for us because we were just in the African American Museum in DC yesterday, which is extraordinary. And the quote was, "Take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step." It sounds like it was a series of steps. You didn't look to some abstract future. You just took the next step in these cases.
Exactly. That phrase in Martin Luther King Jr. is really informative in my life and huge, continues to be an affirmation and an elder, even though he's on the other side for me. And my whole life has been lived that way since that moment. I woke up to the fact that I don't know what it is, but there's something that I can follow that's deeper and more mysterious, but very concrete and real. So after, I woke up to that mystery and then started following it in my path that was informed by my life experience. It was like, okay, now I'm surviving cancer. Now I want to be of service. Now I'm going to take this next step. Now I'm going to take this next step. And all of those steps had led me finally to, not finally, but in that moment in my early 30s, to what was happening was I was being invited into any organization you can imagine: schools, churches, prisons, colleges, where else? Hospitals. By word of mouth, people would learn about what I was doing. What I was doing was creating the conditions for more vitality to rise in people first, and then in organizations and communities. So I never even knew what to put on my business card. I literally don't even, I remember, I didn't even know what to put. I didn't know what I was. But now, in looking back, I was a condition creator for vitality. And I was a freaking expert at that because I had really, I'm trying to find some appropriate words here. I had just spilled water all over my vitality, not without even knowing it as a young person. And then really awakened to like, oh my God, just like a wood fire in a stove, I got to take care of this fire. One of my teachers calls it the fire that takes no wood, the fire inside of us that takes no wood. It's always burning. And how much we feel warmed by it, guided by it, is how much we take care of it. It's always there. It's always there. That's the grace of the whole thing, is that we're breathing. We're breathing the breath of life. So we belong. We're here. How we relate with it and take care of it matters, has always mattered, and matters now more than ever. And in order to learn how to take care of that inner fire, we need places to practice. So I would be called into these organizations, and their design wasn't at all about taking care of the fire in our, metaphorical inner wood stoves. It was usually economic. Economics is part of the deal. Money, people, resources, that's all part of the deal, but it's not the center. It's what we do and use and expend to take care of and give of the fire. But we've gotten misguided, obviously, globally on this, and have put money at the center of things. So when you have a life or an organization that's designed around that, that's the design. You can go in and try to spark vitality all you want. You may have, and we did, have precious moments. I had precious moments with prison administrators, with doctors, with nurses, with educators, with MSW students. And when the design does not take care of that vitality, every single person who hired me to come in and do that work said that was amazing. We had so much vitality for that moment, vulnerability, and then in a month it's gone. Because we're not designed for that. And a lot of those leaders changed their roles and even left the systems after waking up to that fact. So when I lived in Colorado, right, maybe a couple years before we left, I was hired for the second time by an organization called Semester at Sea. And they're a college study abroad program. About 600-700 people on a gigantic ship goes around the world for 4 months. I went in 2000 as a 20-year-old, as their mental health professional. And then I went as the spiritual director in 2010. A friend of mine hired me who knew that I was doing a lot of work with dance as a way to foster vitality. I share that because when I went on the ship, I had a 4-month period that I never had with these other organizations. So
Yes,
I'd drop in,
interesting.
right? I'd drop into the organization, do the thing. Maybe I'd go 6 times, but there wasn't a continual culture that was happening. What happened on Semester at Sea was unbelievable. In fact, I was just teaching about it this morning with our adult program. Because we had a 4-month container or culture, I consistently, through dance, was sparking vitality, and it started with maybe 8 to 10 dancers. And by the time we pulled into Florida, there were over 200 people on the dance floor. It was the biggest thing on the ship. They've never seen anything like it before or after. And it's like, wait, what was that? The question is still being asked by some of the people at Semester at Sea. It's being asked by me. It woke me up to the fact that, wait a second, you can spark, if you have a longer term container or a longer term community or culture, and you spark vitality, something different happens. One of those people on that ship is now a Springhouse staff person.
Really?
Like how many years later? Came maybe 10 years later. So people, when we held a 10-year reunion, there were still people online who came to that reunion after 10 years. Imagine like something you did 10 years ago and then didn't do it again and you return for the reunion. That is powerful. Do we
So
want to roll down this window, or are we hot, or no? Maybe I'm hot because I have my coat on.
Yeah, but we
carry on.
can. We can give it a little.
Okay, a little. Okay, let's do a little.
Give both a nudge so we get a bit of throughway.
I love
we
us
are.
and our adaptability.
Yeah,
We are,
right on.
Honestly.
Let the birds in.
Okay, here we go.
That wind should be okay. See how we go with that wind.
Okay,
I'll let you know
that
if
was
it's a
my
problem.
only thing. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. In fact, let's not have the through. Let's put
Not
one
the
up.
through, okay.
Leave yours open.
Okay, great.
Unless yours is a loud one. Is the wind coming from there?
I can't tell. Let's see if
The
it was,
dust is. Wow. Yeah, it's probably
yours feels better.
better mine, hey?
It's fine. I'll be great if I just
You take layers
take
off.
some layers off.
All right.
Okay.
Now,
It's just getting better.
this is great.
This is, I'll tell you right now, this is going to make it into some blog post for me or something. I don't know.
Awesome. Me too. I tell you.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
good. It's great.
That's awesome. Okay, so
okay.
we're heating up in the car.
Yeah.
The sun is shining, which is quite lovely. Layers are being shed, and a window's open. One window, so the wind doesn't come through, and but it'll let the sound of place in, and we're nearing to our circle back to Floyd County
We are.
and this school. But before we sort of come to that full circle, I'm curious. I guess I'm still on that. Like, where was this source for you? And I've heard from so many people in their journeys that it's very often uncannily traced where people are aware in sometimes surprising ways. And so I'm curious for you, given what we said before about an Irish Catholic upbringing that we share and some of the observations of that we also share, how much you know about your broader ancestry and origins, and if you have any sense of a thread in there that you happen to carry today.
I can't believe you're asking me that question.
Tell me why.
The funny thing is, too, is my husband is on a trip right now in West Virginia, and he just sent me a text that said he just met a guy who speaks fluent Irish, and he gave him his Irish CD that he sings. He literally, just before I came onto this, I saw that. The reason why that's interesting is because most of my heritage and lineage is Irish or Scottish. And so I've been learning the Irish language for 5 years. I sing in Irish. And there's some weird connections even here in Springhouse. If you look up at the chandelier in the Great Hall, there's the symbol of a triskele, which is an old ancient Irish Celtic symbol of transformation. It's got 3 little kind of wheels. And Floyd County was settled mostly I don't even know if the right word is settled. I don't know. You know, I'm not sure what they did, but they came and moved here.
Yeah.
They came here. Irish, Scottish people came here. Yeah. So a lot of, if you've been to the country store, Floyd Country Store.
Not yet, but we're going there next.
Okay, great. There's
For the music tomorrow night.
Oh, great. Oh my God. That's the first place I landed on when I came in Floyd County, and I wept as someone who creates community through dance. God, there's such a story there too. I was just there today leading a community roundtable.
Is that right?
Yeah, we do community work beyond the school. There's so much to tell.
Let's
seriously.
continue.
So, so the lineage is very important in terms of my own lineage, and I think how it's affecting our work here. The staff member who met me on Semester at Sea Dancing Around the World, she and I for the past 4 years, oh God, this is all coming together here. For the past 4 years have been pilgrimaging to Ireland. I started that pilgrimage 13 years ago. My great granny is from Northern Ireland and was a total badass fighter for freedom. And
really?
so I have a lot of lineage in that way too.
Wow.
But our printing press down there was born in Ireland. It was born in the National Print Museum in Dublin this is what I mean by following the steps. So it's like, we didn't know why we were going to Ireland. We've been going to Ireland. I walked into the National Print Museum. This is how long? This is after 8, 9 years of Springhouse already being in existence, already a school, already happening. We just followed the thread to Ireland. We've just both had this call. We met Liam in the National Print Museum of Dublin. My husband's a printer, but I don't really have a connection to printing. my friend who we were staying with lives right next to the print museum, and there's a little cafe there. I was more interested in the scones and tea than I was the printing. So I was in the cafe, and then I walked into the print museum and I'm a writer. And so I'm talking to Liam, and Liam's like, oh, precious person. Said,
stop hitting the steering wheel.
Exactly. I'm so sorry, listeners. So he said, if you want to get close to your work, if you want to get closer to your written work, print it.
Wow.
So I was like, interesting. I don't even know what we would do about that. Well, welcome that was the beginning of the print shop. We came back. We got a letterpress printer, and all of a sudden we had people donating full print shop stuff to us. There was a print shop on the East Coast called, I think, Press of the Night Owl. Owl is really important to me too. And he had died. The printer had died. His wife gave us all of his stuff.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, now we have this full-blown print shop and mentorship from some printers in California. Our whole print shop was born within a month. I wrote the book in another weird way, following the steps, wrote the book over the course of maybe not even a year. I don't even know. Maybe I had already written it. I might have already written it. And we letterpress printed it. Sarah Pollock, who was the dancer with me, she made the book and illustrated it, printed it. And the year later, we went back to Ireland and we went and saw Liam in the National Print Museum. And he said, oh my God, I totally remember you two. And we said, we did it, Liam. And we handed him a book, and we all started crying.
Yeah.
We all started crying. So that's just an example. And if listeners are listening and going, well, wait, what is this place? Now I'll tell that story. Yeah. So given everything I've said, I was in Colorado. My husband had a studio, graphic design studio. I had a studio. We had kids, an urban farm. We were rooted in Colorado Springs. We had a community. I was on boards, nonprofit, blah, 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 doing all my stuff. At the same time, my husband and I, my husband came back from some kind of a lecture at the local college, and he came into our room and he said, what do you think about moving to Virginia to farm? And I was like, I have never even the fact that my husband was saying that was something I would say. And I looked at him and I was like, I don't know why you're saying that. I've never thought of that, nor do I really want to think about it, but I will because you're saying that. 3 weeks later, I was called by a college 45 minutes from here that had heard of my work through the PhD program I was in. And they wanted to hire me to come and teach for a week. I had no idea where the college was. I was like, where are you? And they said, Virginia. And I went, I'm on my way. I'm coming. And the first stop, I couldn't even wait to go teach. I put my kids in the car and drove to Virginia. And the first place we came through was Floyd. And the first place I went to was the Floyd Country Store. And the owners of the Floyd Country Store are now two of my dearest friends. And Heather studies the design that we've now articulated, that we share globally. And she was just at the table with me today studying how do we foster vitality in place over time? How do we do that even more so at the country store? And so really, like I said, if we live in a dominant culture, I don't think I need to probably tell anyone who's listening to this, but we live in a dominant culture that is in serious trouble for a number of reasons. And we need examples, not just ideas, not just conversations, not just thoughts. We need examples of what it looks like when a community, an intergenerational, diverse community says, you know what, we're going to come together and we're going to see what it means to foster vitality in ourselves, with each other, and in this place over time. And why not call it a school? Why not call it a school? Why does school have to be what we've all known it to be, especially in more Western dominant culture that's now globalized? The more I work with people around the world, it's like that's a global system causing the same problems in Kenya as it is here. Yeah. So it makes perfect sense when finally it was like a year, my husband and I, we were literally, and if you talk to people in Floyd County, you will hear this story. We were pulled here. We did not leave Colorado or our community because we didn't like it we were just fine. And with our chickens and our bees and our vegetables, we were pulled.
Which is interesting because in those other contexts of your life, you weren't fine and a transformation came, which is a common story.
Yeah.
For those who've experienced transformation, is it came because there was the death was coming.
Exactly.
In your case, literally.
Exactly.
Yet in this instance, everything was fine, which for your life stands out. Then.
Right. Exactly. It's like fantastic.
Yeah, why would I? If it ain't
mess
broke.
with this.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Let me risk everything.
Exactly.
Yet it didn't feel like that.
No, it didn't. No, we were confused by the whole thing. I can remember when we left, we were getting dressed for this kind of going away party for us that was being held in a local coffee shop. And my husband, I remember him saying, I feel like I'm getting dressed for a funeral. And it was like that.
Yeah.
Lots of tears, lots of like, wait, why are you guys doing this? What is, and I got here before I got here, I did some kind of rituals. I did some ritual on the Snake River in Wyoming just to let go of the part of my vocation that I was doing in Colorado Springs, which was really important to develop skills, develop courage, have my ego slaughtered repeatedly by going into these organizations to foster vitality where, maybe the CEO wants it, but the doctors at the conference table are like, who is this person? Why are you inviting us to just stand up and move our bodies? Like, we don't want to do that. So it was all really good practice for me. So I wandered the country roads here in rural Appalachia for about 6 months in my pajamas and just wondered and finished my PhD, which was really all for me about. I didn't need a PhD. It was all about learning for me, which is sad to have to say that. But I mean, because now it seems like education is a means to an end when it's our birthright to live and learn. And I went to a great program in Arizona, Prescott College, and had a great cohort where I was really able to just have an alchemical experience really and learn and grow. And so I wandered and I was like, what's my commitment now? What is my calling now? And my calling was to, in place over time, see what would happen if a community came together and intentionally designed themselves in a way that fostered life, that fostered vitality.
Okay. So you chose a school, which, I mean, you say why not in a sense, yeah. But on the other hand, comes with a whole bunch of strictures attached to the culture, the dominant culture.
Exactly.
Having done this myself with post-grad.
Yeah.
Benchmarks you have to meet and all this sort of stuff, legitimizing stuff in that culture. Yet you took that on. And were you sort of doing this solo at the time so how did that start?
Weirdly. There was a guy, Joe, here in Floyd County who had some kind of connection to my work on Semester at Sea. I never met him before. He had heard about my dance work, found out that I lived in Floyd. Him and another man, Ezekiel, who we also had mutual connections, but I'd never heard of these two in my life until I came here. They had tried to start a high school connected to another school in town. It wasn't going well. And Joe called me and said, it's a similar thing that happened in Colorado. Would you like to come and do a little, like dance or whatever, come work with us? I'm like, why not? I just got here. I'll just do it. Well, it ended up that school crumbled. And so it was already in that form of school.
Yep.
And it was crumbling. And then I found myself sitting at the table with these two beautiful men saying, I cannot tell you how many times I asked, wait a second, am I one of the founders of this school? Am I doing this with you two? Are we doing this? Are we doing this? And that's when Springhouse was born with the three of us. And then it attracted, a lot of the staff are still here from within the first 2 to 3 years. So it started attracting people, especially young adults. And we were really clear that we were not going to follow, we didn't want to follow the national standards. I mean, we didn't need another thing. Like there's places that you literally, it's illegal to not follow the national standards. Here, it's not.
Really?
Yeah. And so I didn't know. I was like, I mean, is this even legal? You know, what we're doing? We're kind of making this up. What are we doing? And that has been our ethos from the very beginning. And even though we're now accredited, I've had conversations with our accrediting body, and I even thought about this morning. We will not sway from our vision and our mission, which is to live in a thriving world and to fundamentally transform the purpose and practice of education. So if that is ever on the table, like we will never, there's some standards we will never meet. And that just has to be okay. We're not going to like work on them. Like, and when we got accredited, I basically said, we'll never meet these standards to like silo subjects, like English, math, Spanish. Like, in fact, we keep trying to get away from that, and we keep coming back to it probably because we're trying to be legitimate in the eyes of parents.
That's it.
And we are so conscious of that now. I mean, we just had a conversation on that front porch. We don't want to, that's not our mission. So we are really working on strengthening our connection to our own, we call it like the source of our own lives and our collective source, which means honestly a lot of sitting in quiet, a lot of listening to each other, a lot of singing, a lot of dancing. It's a different roadmap to listen to that mystery. It's not a logical, that comes after. Like once it pops up, like, okay, we're founding a printing press. This is interesting. Now all kinds of logic and things come in. Or last year someone said, why don't we be an English Spanish speaking school? I mean, we have like 100 asylum seekers here and immigrants who are living in Floyd County or more. Why don't we know diversity makes things, especially when it's cared for, makes things more vital. Why don't we do that? And we were all like, okay, let's try it. And now, oh my God, we're checking in on our staff meetings in Spanish, and it's all right. So it's like it comes up, and then then there's all kinds of cognition and logic and the rational part. But to listen to what life is calling from us takes a whole different kind of skill and roadmap that, frankly, there is no way we are going to get through this mess without that surrender and listen and humble listening to that. And many of us just, even those might be listening going, I don't even know what that means. Right?
Yeah.
And I totally get that.
Is it?
Yeah.
We need to learn it.
We need to learn it. And it starts with stories where when I woke up and was like, okay, I guess I'm not drinking anymore, I would never have stayed sober if I didn't see other young people who were sober. So I found my way to programs and things where it was like, I'm looking in the eyes of someone who's like, I've been sober for a year. This is what my life is like now. I'm not falling downstairs and driving drunk and making an ass out of myself. You know, it's like, oh, wow, that sounds appealing. That sounds like a good thing. Yeah, but if that were just an idea that, you know, it's like I looked in their eyes. I remember their names. And so that's like, you know, our mutual connection. When they came to visit, I mean, one of the people said, he heard me speak at a conference, and he said, this is the first time that I have heard someone speak about a possibility and then say it's happening and that's actually true.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm actually, you know, I was like, he didn't use the word skeptical, but he was like, I've just not seen it.
No, this is it.
And he's like, now I'm here. Now that doesn't mean Springhouse is perfect. It's a utopia. It's a group of people willing. It's like that quote from Rudolph, I think, Barrow. It's like, we're willing to be insecure enough to try to create, and audacious enough to try to create a very local, strong example of what it looks like for people of all ages to seek vitality.
Wow. That really landed. Because, you know, our mutual connections that you referenced, which, by the way, stem back to Guatemala, my time there, which listeners are sort of getting increasingly au fait with as these links show themselves 20 years on. So, yeah, the friend in Baltimore that came here and is looking with a group of people to set up something, and this is part of what you do now, help others set up schools to this end. And, you know, some of these people, not just him, are faced with the prospect of staring down the teacher's pension and benefits
Right.
that they've worked hard to attain. And in a society which even differs from Australia in that way, that is less safety net oriented, collective safety net oriented. And for all of Australia adopting neoliberal stuff too and similar small brother politics to what's happening here, we've still maintained a lot of that social infrastructure, which I'm proud and happy about. I can see why people would feel a bit more insecure here, but yet listening to that phrase you finished on, that's partly what it required of all the things that you guys have, not being a utopia and all, but that you were a group that was committed to going there, and obviously not just materially, but I'm imagining inclusive of materially, you were prepared to put it all on the line.
Yes.
I guess now that you work with others to inspire others to take up their form of this sort of a model, have you heard a bit of that yourself, or how could I possibly actually do it? Or have you sort of got your ready message as part of what you share as to how you guys faced down those sorts of moments?
That's a great question. That is the first thing people say, is we could never do this, because it's that survival kind of, right? Like, I couldn't do it. And that's why, I say, and, in the short book that I wrote and we printed, the 5 principles we follow to start something like this, which we didn't even know that we were doing, is we take care of vulnerability, we cultivate personhood, and we do that in body, in the sacred, and in our self-awareness. So this isn't like some philosophical thing that we just came up with in our closet. It's like we looked at 10 years of experience and we asked ourselves for a year, what did we just do?
How did it happen? Yeah.
How did it happen? I haven't even seen the staff's resume. I don't care about that. What I care about is that they are willing to strengthen their body, their soul, and their self-awareness. And I'm committed to anything I ask of them, and they ask, I do the same. We do the same. We're a community. And then we build beloved community by respecting individuality, by fostering unity, and by creating systems to take care of relationships. We learn from the earth about growth. So we build an example, we sustain it, and then we help it as it spreads. And then to sustainably keep at it in loving and serving others, we learn how to accept reality, follow our call, and keep going. So that's what we know. We know that we do that. At the center of all of that is this mysterious thing that we just can't get around. And so when I'm working with your friend, when I'm doing that, many times, even when I was just on Zoom with them for 6 hours, we connect with that mystery starting in ourselves, with our very own breath. It doesn't matter how we do that. We can run to strengthen our bodies. We can swim. We can walk. We can pray. We can meditate. We can sit in quiet. It has to have nothing to do with any kind of religion to foster a sense of wonder and sacredness. And we can grow and should honestly grow our self-awareness in a number of ways that allow us to really be clear about our gifts and our shortcomings. And I've never been able to do that. I mean, I'll only go so far alone. I have mentors and communities who I trust. So I share that because if I don't foster that connection with that power within me, I will make something else that power. And it's usually in our culture, money. Money becomes the be-all end-all for security, or my husband, or my status and prestige, or even like being overly organized, like even a form of, well, let's hold on to this schedule. It's like, what is actually at the center? It is the living, breathing breath of life. And that, if you go back to lineage, I mean, that's Celtic language. The breath of life is Celtic language. The word in Irish for to be alive is bio. And there's a school I even went to there that's called bio. And it's really about returning to the breath of life. It's not a religion or an ideology. It's a practice.
Okay, now I have to chime in with a little something.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it before, because my Irish ancestry is sort of making a bit of a return in my being, and I never thought of myself much in those terms. I felt Australian, and I really connect with that drier, harsher, less green, particularly in the west side, not like Ireland, right?
Yeah, no.
Yet the podcast leads me to this guy called Munkan McGann. You haven't
I do know.
You know.
Yeah,
okay.
he was just in the school that I was in.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. You got to love it. So I connect with Munkan as much because he had just been to Australia, going to some of the places we've been to with the podcast in northwest Western Australia, for example. And so there was something else going on. And what was going on was he'd been invited to an Irish Aboriginal festival, like an ancient Irish, like Indigenous Irish, if you like. Aboriginal festival in Fremantle, so near Perth, near the capital, sort of 12 miles from us. And we're sort of, I guess, what are we in miles? Sort of 8 miles, 14 kilometres from Perth on the coast, and straight down the coast south, 12 miles is Fremantle. And that's where the Swan River comes out, or Derbil Yerrigan is an Aboriginal name. So he'd connected with that festival and then really connected with some elders, including some elders from the Kimberley, ends up being invited there. So does that. And we were just about to be there, but by the time we were there, he'd gone. So we linked up online while I was there and then had this lively conversation, which then is sparking all sorts of stuff in me. I guess I'd felt emerging in a similar kind of way, but it really put a kick to it.
Wow.
And I say that now because of what you just said about what's embedded in the language, which is what's ended up becoming of his life. A guy who'd left Ireland, all the more because of his freedom-fighting heritage, which he became a bit suffocated by, funnily enough, but ends up full circle back in Ireland, applying his travel writing, travel documenting mind to his roots, Irish roots. And that it comes up with this kind of language, which of course is shared. So the basis of this festival in Western Australia is shared by Aboriginal culture there. And to think that they found the links were enormous, it's like, that's not necessarily a given, but in a way, of course. And you can imagine that that would be true, well, in the region we're in right now, and on we go.
Yes.
Fascinating to think.
Yeah. And it's when if people are listening and they're like, I don't really even still like, one of the things I've relieved myself of is trying to explain the mystery of life. However,
just have a blob in the center of that schematic you talked about. That's just that.
It's just a blob.
Yeah. The source of everything.
But to put a little story to it is, I think it was maybe a few years ago, I had a surgery on my neck, and it was just like a, skin kind of removal thing. But when they showed me, they're like, do you want to see the wound? I was like, sure. I'm like, oh, it was a huge like hole in my neck. And okay. So I cared for it, took care of it. But every day I watched that heal. I took care, I cleaned it, I put, did all the stuff, but I wasn't healing it.
You did it, yeah.
I wasn't healing it. There was something else healing it. There is something that moves through these trees before you can see it. The sprout, the buds are starting to happen on this tree. They are. Yeah. Right? And there is a life force moving through that tree. There is a life force moving through me and through you and through anything that is a form and is living. We need to learn how to respect that. Not only respect it, but partner with it. And I have had the good grace of being able to partner with the source of my life in me for 35 years now. And I have been relentless about that journey. I don't leave it. And that's a miracle. I don't get distracted. I haven't gotten distracted from that. And so as you build a relationship, I think about my husband, who I've known for 33 years. It's not all fun and games, but you really get to know the seasons of a relationship, whether that's with my partner or with what created me. And I just I've been married to it. I'm in love with it. And so I keep coming back to that, and it keeps showing me the way. And I want to have more places that teach us how to fall in love with our lives and listen, trust, and follow. Because as the poet David Whyte has said in one of his poems, I think it's What to Remember When Waking, the plans we make are much too small for us.
Oh, yeah.
Way too small.
Lovely.
Right.
Okay, you hit the ground running with this school.
Yeah.
You choose this ground. Or it chose you. Tell me how it happened.
Yeah.
I saw it in your eyes.
Yeah.
Tell me how it happened.
We started in a basement of an eco village. Super grateful. That's where the Joe and Ezekiel were when I came. We were there, and then Joe and Ezekiel found their way out into different things, followed their path. And I stayed with a small group of people, and we just knew it when it was time to go from the basement. I mean, my office was in a shower closet. I mean, we were really grateful, but you just know when you're like, it's time to go. When anyone who's started anything new knows, right? It starts in your freaking kitchen, you know?
Do what you got to do.
You got it. Yeah, exactly.
And you can.
And you can. You can.
Dang.
You can start anywhere. You can do a podcast in a car.
Yes.
When you're choking on smoke from the kitchen. So we ended up moving to we moved to a building that was even less conducive, I would say. It's just a step away. And this is what I love about this community. We all showed up, painting walls, doing everything. But I was like, this cannot last for more than a year. This cannot be the place. Like, I don't even know that I would send my kids here to this thing. Go. So that year, I didn't know what was going to happen. I received a call from a beautiful couple not from this area, whose young adult had gone through one of our programs. They called me and said, we believe in what you're doing. We want to support you, and we are going to purchase you a permanent location to move into. This place used to be a Chinese medicine clinic. It was in foreclosure. Yep.
Which, by the way, is what my wife does, who's sitting in that building.
Oh, my God. That's what this used to be? Okay. Herbal garden, a medicine garden was here. Big one.
Wow.
And it's still, a lot of the plants are still there. And then lots of acupuncture, all kind Tai Chi, Qigong was happening here. And it created this incredible energy here. It was in foreclosure. That community I'm not sure what happened to it, but it fell apart. And they bought this 11 acres in this building for us and continue to invest in it. It is truly a generous philanthropy happening. And also back to the money, right? The economic design is rooted here in trust. So we don't, in the trust of something greater than us. When I get scared, and I don't get scared anymore, but I did for many years, I would continue to hear this voice. Do your best, be in service to life, and you will be taken care of. Over and over, I can remember the moments. And so we take that really seriously. I mean, we have systems in place that remind us of that. We have a participatory budgeting process where the whole staff meets every March and we talk about what we need financially. We create the budget. We look at what the community needs and make sure that those are in alignment, that we have enough staff to do that. Do we have too many? Do we have too few? And we decide, we come to the table together and say, okay, I've looked at my numbers. This is what I need this year. Some people might come to the table and say, I got an inheritance from my grandmother. I could drop my salary down 10 grand. And so it's not about more. It's about, what do we need now? And what do we need to thrive? Not just survive, but thrive. Like someone might say, I want to go get my master's this year. So I need this much, or I would like to start putting away to buy a house. And so we have these conversations communally with each other. So we trust each other a lot. And then when we have, I think 80% of our budget is people. That's how we are. We don't need a lot to do what we're doing. And we pay this is our building, so we don't have to pay any rent or anything.
This is so central to everything, especially when I talk about the fear people might feel, even amongst that cohort that I've connected with, that they're going to start their own thing or things maybe, is essentially the fear comes from thinking, okay, this society is made to have us all isolated on our own and need to have that pension fund or whatever, retirement fund or superannuation, we call it in Australia, the same sort of beast. And I better not risk having to fend for myself and have it go wrong. But I guess there's perceived to be a leap to get into a context where you can and you do take care of each other. Right. So hearing how you do that, like I instantly imagine it playing, as others have been doing and experimenting with as well, but playing out with, for example, agriculture. So I've met a lot of regenerative farmers, for example, but they'll struggle with the same thing. They'll be getting squeezed by the same market forces while they're trying to do this thing, bring back nature along with healthy food and so forth, and thinking, how am I going to get through that where it doesn't match, the logical types don't match, until it reaches this sort of a point where the dialogue between retailers, distributors and the producers is, let's get together and figure out where our needs are shared and what's required.
Yep.
Which doesn't seem like rocket science, frankly.
Right.
It should and could be done.
Right. And it does take, like, our financial manager, who we used to have, but don't now. Now we do it in-house. He said, I've been doing this a long time, and there is no way any of my other clients could do the process that you're doing. He's like, I've never seen it. There's no way, because it takes an emotional, not perfection, an emotional maturity that he's like, no one would ever reveal how much they make to someone else because it triggers all kinds of stuff within the organization. And for us, it's not, the salary isn't first. The shared vision and mission and goals are first. And then the acknowledgement that we live in a culture where money is a resource and we need it, but it's not at the center. And people don't, we have a fundraiser every June, one a year. And it's it's called Give Local, and it's all the nonprofits participate in it. And we raise, like, let's see, last year we raised in 3 weeks $125,000 from nearly 500 unique donors.
Yeah, there you go.
So when you look at the other nonprofits in the area, it's not even, I mean, the next one down was like 40,000, right? And it's not because people aren't doing good work. It's because we understand that we need a network of support that includes the participants but goes beyond it. And we have people who never have taken a class here, but believe in the vision and share the vision and the mission and support it at that fundraiser, or we have a whole partnership model where people join. We've been really creative because what we do is we look
and transparent, I guess.
And transparent. Yeah. And so we look at, this is what we need. This is what the money that we need for the next year. And then we come together and go, how are we gonna get it? Because financially, no one is turned away for lack of funds. So some people here pay nothing, literally zero, who come to school.
And they don't feel weird for that either.
They don't, no. And then some people pay 10 grand. It just depends on what they have. But all of that is on the surface of something much deeper and maybe more mysterious that takes systems of commitment to grow that kind of trust. That is that one little voice I heard in me. Yeah. Do your best. So if there was a year where I'd be like, oh my God, we have this plan to try to bring in major donors for 80 grand, let's say. I'm like, where is it? How are we going to even get that? You know, I can remember sitting under the tree out here and being like, what if we don't get it?
There we go.
And Carolyn was like, I mean, then we figure something else out, but we have no reason to fear. There's no place for fear here. We will trust ourselves and each other. And that's what we do for each other. And we were fine. I mean, we were fine. Yeah. But weird stuff happens. Like even just a month ago, we got a check in the mailbox that we didn't expect for $24,000 from someone who had us in our will. And the person who was even connected to that person didn't even know we were in their will. See, it's this kind of thing. But that's all kind of like, fancy, I think. It's like kind of flashy or something to say that. But why I'm saying that is because it's a testament to something that I could never explain. I don't understand why it is things like this happen where we have this building now. And I don't know, because a lot of people do good work and don't receive the resources they need. And I can't explain why that is. All I can say is we are still here, radically and fundamentally transforming education in rural Appalachia in a one stoplight town for 11 years. To me, that is a miracle. And I could never explain it, but I do pay attention as a practitioner and a scholar I want to practice and then I want to reflect on the practice and see, is there anything we can pull from this to share on a podcast in my car? or to share
I'm so glad.
with people who are in Maryland trying, who are like, you know what? We want liberation for all life. That means we're going to have to align with life. What does that mean? That's what this experiment is. This is an experiment. What happens when you continually, forever and ever, eternally align with life? Because it never stops. There's no place of arrival.
Yeah. And, you know, I say before, it doesn't seem like rocket science, but you're right. What you said next was that, well, again, it requires a learning for certain processes, certain systems, emotional maturity, trust, being there for each other. So, yeah, we're shifting cultures. So it's big in that sense. So, yeah, come back to the school now. You've got the land and you set up and you're running it like this as staff and so forth, and it's rolling along. And now you've had, I imagine now your graduates are starting to stack up.
Yeah.
How do you run it sort of day to day? How does the learning take place that aspires or literally lives out these principles and creates such a way in people that they do have the capacity to connect and to trust and to find ways to align with life in that way?
Now that is not rocket science, but I'll tell you, I've made it rocket science, which has made it confusing. So let me tell you what I mean by that. So it's about when healthy adults are embodying what they hope for, they have something different to pass down to others, other adults, other young people. And then that it becomes beyond adults. Like I have there's a 14-year-old teenager here. He and I are writing a grant right now together. I just saw his slideshow and his video that he put together. I'm like, oh my God, super articulate. It's all about building bridges with food and creating community and sustainable economics. I'm like, okay, see this, he's been with us for 3 years. So it's about creating culture. And that really just takes community practices and shared values and honestly rites of passage that allow the community to really develop and deepen. That's the fundamental foundation. Like if we could do that for a long time, we're fine. Yeah. But then you have the pressures of, I mean, is that school then?
Yeah.
Or is
exactly.
What's your transcript going to look like?
Yeah.
Like, what is it? All of that stuff, right? So that's the stuff I navigate. But what I want to say about the rocket science piece is that when Springhouse started, imagine I'm putting my hands together, like clasped together. We were like this, like we were together. Imagine us just like holding a candle. What are we doing? What are we even doing? What is this Springhouse thing? Is this legal? Are we allowed to do, it was all of that. We didn't know who we were yet because we were just starting, right? And as we did that, we stuck together. Relationship was number one. That can get a little codependent and weird after a while where you're like, wait, are we all deciding about what kind of toilet paper we're going to buy? Or like, is that necessary? Right? Or it's like, I'm going to bring 3 people with me to talk about our model when really I could go and talk about it, right? It starts to get a little codependent and teenagery. I mean,
almost ideological in that sense.
Exactly. Yeah. It gets a little weird. Yeah. And so it started to get a little weird. You can feel it in the system. Yeah. I could. And then I, of course, as I do, sought out mentorship to help me see better what was happening, starting with learning. My own. Yeah, my own flaws. Where was I? And basically what I realized was there was a teenager in me that was like, oh, this is comfy cozy. I don't have to stand on my own. I can just stand with this, my little cohort here. And what happened after that, I would say the past 3 years, maybe 4, maybe 3 years, we started, now I'm pulling my hands apart and you could see my fingers all separate. We started to find our own ground within our collective. Now, what can happen there is you can start getting overly specialized, overly organized, overly structured. We went from this, clasped hands, to this. And we are literally right now, looking as a staff at like, I think we might be going in a direction that's a reaction to where we were. I think it was needed. And now we're going, now wait a minute. Have we made things like when you talk about the day-to-day schedule? Yeah. Is the day-to-day schedule that different from what, if you, the listener was looking at our schedule, you'd be like, it doesn't look that different. to me than what most of us grew up in, right? And it doesn't have to if it doesn't need to, but it's more like we're putting so much more weight into the curriculum, the structure. We're making that the center, and we are losing. There's a little bit, just a little, and we're all so close to the system. No, probably others wouldn't even notice, but we do, where we're like, wait, what happened? Where is that time where we were huddled around the table together? Where's that energy? We were at people's houses. Let's not get all corporate on ourselves here, and corporate meaning, like
siloed and bureaucratic
and over organized body, know? And so now we're awake to that. And now what we do, like yesterday, how we respond to that is I put a candle in we meet every single Wednesday for an hour and a half as a staff, have since almost the beginning. And we dance every other Wednesday together. And we sit around that candle and I just say, let's listen. The collective source is us. So if you're moved, speak. And then we look at what's come up and then we decide our course of action. So it's about forever learning and growing and creating systems that allow us to make sure that we're listening to ourselves and to each other as we go. Because like I told you when you came in, I said to a staff member today, I said, don't get too attached to the schedule. Like I could tell you all the schedule right now, but I hope it's different in ways that better serve us. It's not the point. The schedule, we have a curriculum. You can order a book on our website. You can order a book that I wrote about the design. That's fantastic. I would invite you to come get your feet on the ground at Springhouse. And I guarantee that there is something you will take with you that's different. And then if you want to dive into it, like over time, that's where the books and things come into play.
Yeah.
But I think it is scary to start something new, especially in a field that's so rigidly defined and I think put on a pedestal in a way that lies to our kids, our young adults, where they end up in college. Even my own kids are like, wait, this is what everyone's calling the golden key. Seriously. And we're paying $60,000 for it a year. I mean, seriously, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's like for us to really continue to listen for the courage. I hope Springhouse continues even more to live in alignment with its mission. I think we're just getting started. I think we are such a strong example already, but I hope what we've done will give us the courage to throw into the crucible, into the fire, what is no longer needed, and watch whatever phoenix arises and follow that phoenix. Because we're not going to create something new out of our old experiences or even our current day. And where is that imagination going to come from? It's going to come from the creative source within us. And when we hold hands together, when it comes from the collective source in place over time, this is what happens. Springhouse is what happens. And maybe others can relate to that,
Yes. I mean, being here now, there are students presenting in the salon right now on economics and the cosmos, which I just love. When I heard that, I'm like, yes, we'll be there for that. And of course, we're looking out on the land that's budding, as you said, as we just move. What are we now? Late February. So moving into spring here. And part of what you've done here is a land regeneration project as well with students. And that's been a part of the learning for people. And we will be back tomorrow, and then we are going to be at the country store for the Friday Jamboree, the famed Jamboree, and then a bit more besides. It is amazing to be here and feel that energy. There wasn't a single student or staff member that passed us as a family without saying hello, and hello to every one of us. There were little things immediately that exhibited what you're talking about. It was quite wonderful. I'm wondering, for you as much, you've talked about mentors a bunch of times. There may be names that come to mind, or perhaps just an ilk or a general source, but I'm curious as to the roots you've delved back into? Obviously, the Irish stuff was part of it, but are there others? We mentioned the people who were on this land before. Are they around and included? What other mentorship and roots and lineages to this stuff have you been tapping?
We have connected with the Monacan Nation, who there are people that still live here. They helped us craft our land acknowledgement, which is fantastic. And also every time we read it, I'm like, okay, I love this, that we're saying that through our consistent curriculum, we are committed to facing the oppression and injustices that we live with today. And we're still on this land. So there's still more that we could be doing in that way. In terms of when you walk into the school, if you walk into in that hallway on the right, you'll see two kind of windows that have hanging on the wall that have different pictures of people.
First thing I saw.
That's our elder wall. So that's like all of us come around, and we should see this is a place where it's like, I'm always thinking about where we can grow and learn. And our teenagers should be adding to that wall. That's a staff and our board of trustees. We've put elders on that wall that have inspired us and led us and guided us, coming from all different kinds of lineage. And so for me, it's just, I would not be who I am without the people who have guided me, the elders in my life, starting at 20 years old. 20 years old, having a woman who was really a therapist, a shaman in disguise, and working with her for 5 years, working with a Catholic priest, a Jesuit monk who were awake people, bonsai tree growers, like they were just, John Zay was a Franciscan monk and took care of bonsais and taught me so much about accepting the fact that I am a mystic, that I am in love with what woke me up, and that I'm going to feel like a big weirdo for the rest of my life, but just get used to it and learn, find others, and God, people on the Melissa Michaels on the dance floor. So many people, Ellie Coriel through Qigong, and my dear Edith, who is a current mentor and guide to me now. For 15 years, we meet every Friday and talk about me and what gets in the way and what doesn't. And mentoring is a practice that we practice here. Every staff has a peer mentor. I have a peer mentor with the trustees here. Every teen has a mentor. Mentoring is how we pass down collective, individual, but also collective wisdom, collective ways of being. So there's things you'll see like that: mentoring, dance, singing, studying about ourselves, having personal practice time every day, studying about the cultural context we live in, the power of possibility right now through the cosmos. Like you'll see there's a whole undercurrent here that is very intentional and structured. Where I think we are waking up is that the structure that guides us and informs us, it's like a seed. It doesn't have to look exactly, it's structured and intentional, but it doesn't have to be almost like a tit for tat on the surface. A carrot seed does not look like a carrot. So as a designer, if anyone out there is a designer, it's like you plant the seed, the alchemical process is what we need to allow for. And what I want to know is when we plant our curriculum and our design, and then we hold and we listen, what does it want to bring forth? Because it's very easy as human beings to force it. Well, we study possibility in this way. And what does that mean, the alchemical process? It means creating systems that allow for the community to listen to themselves and each other and make sure that's representative. Because if it's not, and it hasn't been in places with teenagers, in places like Springhouse, have we listened enough to the teenagers as we've created our days? No, we have not. Right? And so it's that's what it means to allow for the alchemy, is to allow for that messiness.
Yeah.
Inside the collective.
This is a particular time in the States that is feeling very messy to people. Yeah. And I think probably across the board. So those who wanted to see it happening at a federal political level like this are going good, but it's still messy. And those who didn't are feeling perhaps more of the fear and vulnerability that we talked about too, which, on the one hand, I guess could jam people up. On the other hand, with a whole bunch of people, it does seem to be spurring them on. We're seeing all sorts of civic engagement coming out of the woodwork in all sorts of numbers under the surface of what's happening at that federal government level. I wonder for you, how are you perceiving the ramifications of what's happening right now in the context of what you're up to and trying to spread?
It's always about bio, the Irish word for life.
Yeah.
It's always about life for me. What are we fighting for? What are we actually fighting for? Are we fighting for a political party? Are we fighting for a particular cause? All of that is what it is. But for me, it is deeper than that. It includes all of that, but it's deeper than that. And there's a couple things that have come to me. One is just in this moment as you were talking, I see the face of my father, who is now dead. John Brady, he died when I was 31, so over 20 years ago. Yeah. And he, when he was 14, was run over by a Detroit city bus. Nearly lost his life, was told he couldn't have children, couldn't walk for 3 years. He had his accident, on September 28th, 1960. I'm his first child, and I was born on September 28th, 1970. So my dad, when he was run over, and God bless him, was in a family system that was, Irish alcoholic, God bless. And he won a huge settlement from the city of Detroit of money at 14. Imagine. Couldn't walk. So money became the center for him. Money, when he knew he could buy his yellow GTO when he could start to walk and he could drive in and it'd be like, woo, there's John Brady in the yellow GTO, right? So money became life for him. Yeah. And how many of us in our world can relate to that? Money is God in our world.
And even in his case, it's understandable in a way.
Right, it's understandable, right?
It was his source of recovery.
We make it the thing, right? And anyone who's listening is like, oh God, that's Pollyanna, whatever. I am not saying that we don't need money. I am saying that money is not life. Money is a resource. And I know this because I have faced my own death. And even right now, I have another form of lymphoma.
Oh, no. Really?
So it's in my skin, so it's supposed to be more manageable. Wow. So they've told me to think about it like diabetes, which let me tell you, I'm like, great. As long as I can stay on the planet, as long as I can continue to eat strawberries and look in my son's eyes and dance on the dance floor with the Springhouse community and look at these trees and sing and dance and sit in cars and do podcasts, whatever I need to do, right? So... But I can tell you that money is not what I think about most days. And I can also say that I know a lot of people do because they don't have it, right? And there's a group of people that have a lot of it, especially in this country. Yeah. So I share this with you because when I looked into my dad's eyes when he was dying, I can tell you that it wasn't money. And in fact, to hear him say, Jenny, I probably drank too much. I probably worked too much. And I smoked too much. He died from lung cancer. And he said, is that it? I said, that, you know what, Dad, that covers it. So I share that because I learned in looking at a dying man who happened to be my father, that it's like, oh, shoot, I kind of missed the boat on that one. I missed it a little. And I think we're missing it. When I look at, we are absolutely following the dollar one way or another right now. And I just wonder, I've gotten this experience at Springhouse to see what happens when you center life. And then you see money as a resource, people as a resource, physical resources like buildings and cars and things and vans, physical resource. The earth is a resource. It's like when you see that life is at the center and there's all these ways to foster it and serve it, something different happens. But so many of us are just trying to survive. We can't even get really to that point. So what I'm saying is I think it's no matter which way, it's going to take a real warrior to return to the power of life. And that's what I'm interested in, is returning to that power. I don't live at a time and in a culture that is concerned with what I'm saying right now. I don't. And that's okay. I know I'm not here to save the world or change the world, but I am here to live my truth. And that's my truth. And so I can live that anywhere, any which way I'm doing. So even when I go into the oncology center, I'm orienting around life, not cancer. I'm not ignoring cancer though. It's like, that's why I'm in the oncology center. So, but I'm saying I'm standing for life in here, because even when this body dies, I will continue, right? And my oncologist, who I love, is like, Jenny, I have never in my life met anyone who is saying what you're saying in these offices. And that's not because I'm special. It's not because I'm great. It is because I have been practicing for 35 years, practicing, staying connected to that source through recovering from an addiction, through 2 cancer diagnoses, through the death of my father, through many people I love dying or getting very hurt from addiction. Over and over, I could give right? We all have our stories.
Yeah, exactly.
But my orientation is to this mysterious breath of life that I find great. When you asked about lineage, I find great comfort in wisdom traditions, in ancient wisdom. I don't feel like a weirdo when I go back.
No, it's interesting,
right?
isn't it?
I don't feel like a weirdo at all. I feel very normal.
Most of the human journey
yeah,
is consistent
yeah,
with what you're saying.
yeah,
Just not right now.
Exactly. Not right now. So if I work on, just accepting myself and accepting my experience, and then create a space where I can pass this down, because now it's all about legacy for me. It's about what am I leaving, not so I'm remembered, so that the power of life being the greatest resource we have, that teaching is remembered. I'm part of a long story in that. I'm not alone in that story.
That's beautiful. In a sense, given that my friend Dana in Baltimore, who came here, we met in Guatemala. I was in Guatemala because I had become so sick of the earning, spending cycle, just make enough to get by. And when are you actually getting to the heart of a calling or what's worth something in life, of putting life at the center? I was so jack of that I went to Guatemala, and that was my journey to get to the heart of it. And it sort of set the tone from there. Funny to think that resolution is what has led me here all those years later. It's been magnificent to speak with you. I'm so glad to have met and to have had this conversation and at the school, but I never leave these conversations without talking about music.
Yeah.
I'd love to know, I'll put you on the spot, but you can take your time. I'd love to know if there's been or is a piece of music that's been significant in your life, or just now, that you might tell us about.
I can't believe you're asking me that. I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm going to sing it.
Even better. Thank you.
I'm going to sing the first, oh God, Mary's my teacher. I hope I do this justice, and I hope I can fully remember it. It's an old song, and, it's so beautiful. It's called Auren Wincha, and it is about basically a woman's dying wishes, that she wants her death to go in this particular way. And the story basically is that it doesn't go that way. But who knows if she cares, because she's gone. So here's the first verse. It's a long song, so I'll sing the first verse.
Thank you.
The Irish language and Irish music is probably the thing that makes me feel like I belong most here, in like the deepest.
Yeah.
It's all the people, all the family, all of that in the land, of course. But this is an older thread than that holds me close. Scamein tree leg warriga, no slave tai waro here. Scanniac bio imagwiran, ach reinjac glas is friach. An schnakta hedju anu isaram, is angwiga wadagium. Smeave e coram lamatamin ban, nerevada lamani.
My goodness. You want to keep going?
Have me back.
Thanks so much, Jenny.
Thank you. What a blessing. Thanks.
That was Jenny Finn, founder and ED of Springhouse Community School. Thanks also to Development Director Carolyn Riley for such a warm welcome, to Media Director Sarah Pollock for the wonderful guided experiments in the print shop, to West Aussie student Zephyr for her shining presence, and to her old man too, notwithstanding misguided Hawks Footy Club allegiances, to Gigi and H for having Yeshi and us adults in their classes, and to old friend and podcast subscriber Dana Scott for connecting us all. I've put a bunch of photos on the website and of course various links in the show notes. As usual, I'll have more for paid subscribers on Patreon and Substack soon, in great thanks for making it all possible. You can join this generous community of listeners by heading to the website or the show notes and following the prompts. Thank you so very much. The music you're hearing is Regeneration by Amelia Barden. My name's Anthony James. Thanks for listening.